Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Me oyen? Vamos a ver. Mira, aquí veo que se están conectando. They're connecting from Italy, from Madrid. Hi, from Colombia, Granada. Hi, everyone. Kelly, can you check your microphone to see if we can hear you? Yeah, you're on mute. So go to, yeah. Don't worry, you just need to go to settings and press unmute the microphone. So these first few minutes are like technical issues usually. So we just say hi to everyone. Oh, Milan, Barcelona, Peru living in Italy. So hey, everyone.
Now?
Yes, now we can hear
Yeah,
you.
okay,
Perfect. Perfect. So good. Well, good to see everyone that's connecting from everywhere, all over the world, from Pamplona. Great, Venezuelan. I'm also Venezuelan living in Pamplona. So what a good thing to know there's another one like me. So, well, we're going to go ahead and start now that you can hear us. So hi, everyone. Happy to see everyone here. My name is Leonor Silva, and I'm the Director of International Relations at ESEM Fashion Business School. So I hope everyone is safe and at home. I hope everyone's doing okay. We're all going to come out of this soon, hopefully, and okay and safe. So the idea for this webinar is just to give you all access to great content from the comfort of your own homes and information that it will hopefully be useful to you and that you'll be able to implement some of these ideas into your everyday life, or if you have a company or anything. So get ready for an amazing webinar where you're going to have the opportunity to hear directly from our speaker, Kelly Talamas, on today's subject of a brand DNA with purpose. So by the end of this webinar, you're going to have a better understanding of what it takes to create your brand DNA, because it's super important to have a clear understanding of what your brand is exactly, what you stand for, what your mission is. So once you have this all figured out, everything else in your business and every decision that you make for your company should be very easy, because you just need to follow that path of who you are. So just a brief introduction on who we are at ESEM. So as our name says it, we're a fashion business school. We're part of the University of Navarra, which is a very prestigious university. We're actually based in Madrid and have many different programs, which I will tell you all about after Kelly is done presenting. But our main program is called it's an Executive Master in Fashion Business Administration, or the FBA, as we say in short. It's essentially an MBA specific for the fashion industry, and our professors range from our very own at ESEM to visiting professors from the University of Navarra, and visiting professionals also that from the industry. So we have a good connection, a good network of people that we usually bring in as guest speakers, people like Kelly. And so it's a very great university. ESEM also has about 98% student employability rate. So if you're thinking of jumping into the fashion industry, this is definitely a good way to do it. So now on to our speaker. I'd like to introduce everyone to Kelly Talamas, who has over a decade of experience in fashion and lifestyle industries. I mean, she doesn't need an introduction really, but Kelly was born and raised in Miami, where she graduated from the University of Miami and studied journalism and economics. Upon her graduation, she started working at Ocean Drive, one of the biggest magazines there, and subsequently started working at Vogue, Vogue Mexico and Latin America, as editorial coordinator and later as a fashion editor. She spent her career working at Vogue, where she became the youngest ever editor-in-chief and then creative director for the magazine. And as editor-in-chief, Kelly had many achievements, including the launch of Vogue Who's On Next Mexico, an initiative that aimed to support local designers, which Kelly also later rolled out in Colombia as well, where she now lives. She has an incredible knowledge of the fashion industry, both in the US and and Latin America. Yes, my mind today. But, she's also now consulting with brands and doing different projects together. So she has collaborated with a range of different clients, including Chanel, Ralph Lauren, Silvia Cherasi, Tiffany, and she also has a passion for discovering talent and local brands. So she's consulting with them and helping them grow internationally. So as you can see, she's had an impressive career, and she's actually also been a speaker at our New York and Miami programs, which I will also tell you all about later. So just a few last technical things before we begin the webinar. You have a questions tab right below our presentation. So where you see our screen, you have questions, polls, and offers. So if you could put all of your questions regarding Kelly's presentation there, that would be great, because otherwise they're going to get lost in the chat. You will also all get a recording of this webinar after we're done. You just have to wait for it a couple of days. It's not going to be like immediately after we log out. We also recommend that you log in using Chrome as a web browser, so not Safari or Internet Explorer or anything else, because for some reason it just works better. And if at some point anyone loses connection or you can't hear me or Kelly, you can just hit reconnect right below the screen, or refresh the link and log right back in. So I'm going to be monitoring your questions, and if I see that there are any very specific questions regarding a slide that Kelly is on, I'll interrupt her. Otherwise, I'm going to let her go through the presentation and we can do the Q&A afterwards. So thank you so much, Kelly, for being here, for doing this. And I'll let you take over from now.
Perfect. Hi, good morning. Thank you, Leo, and thank all of you for tuning in today, especially those tuning in from Latin America. I know it's pretty early where we are right now, so thank you. So as Leo mentioned, I've given a few conferences with ESEM. I've had the opportunity to give a few conferences in New York and in Miami in their fashion entrepreneurship program. And this one that I'm going to talk to about today is one that I gave in Miami to for their fashion entrepreneurship to mostly emerging designers. And when Leo contacted me several weeks ago when this whole crisis started, to be honest, I hesitated a bit. This is my first webinar, so I ask you for your patience. But also, I think I was also kind of trying to think like what is relevant right now. You know, I think a lot of the topics and issues we discussed back then have changed so much now. And even though, you know, this presentation I did a year ago, I really had to update it and really think about how do I want to discuss, you know, talking about your brand DNA in the current crisis that we're living in today. So today, what I want to focus in, as Leo mentioned, is building your brand DNA, but incorporating purpose into that. So I'm going to pull up the presentation. And I think, you know, as we start off, you know, I want to start with some basics. I think right now we're all in a moment where we are reevaluating our, you know, our jobs, our brands, our goals, and kind of just resetting as a whole. So I think when we do that, I think it's important to start off and kind of just go back to the basics of the fundamentals. Brand DNA is something that we, you know, it's a word that's heard a lot, used a lot, but I think it helps sometimes to go back and look at the actual definition of what it is and to analyze what it really means. So my first theoretical question is, what's your brand DNA? If you look at the definition, it's the fundamental and distinctive characteristics or qualities of someone or something, especially when regarded as unchangeable. So we all know what DNA is, and we all know that, you know, it's what each of us have, it's what makes each of us unique, but that also applies to brands. You know, each brand, there are no two brands that are alike. Each brand has its own story, its own characteristics and qualities that make it unique. But what I really want to focus on here is the fact that I think that I think is so important is the unchangeable part. I think as a brand, we can come out with new products, we can come out with new collections season after season, but really your brand DNA shouldn't be changing. It shouldn't be something new. It should be something that is innate and unchangeable in your brand, because if you're constantly changing your brand DNA, then you're confusing your customer and you're getting lost in the noise, which is why it's so important to have that so clear from the beginning, because it's something that should not be changed later. And when I think of DNA, I think of identity. Your brand DNA is your identity. It's who you are. Nothing, you know, it's that set of information that really describes who you are. It's your personality. It's how you communicate. You know, are you a more serious brand? Are you a more, you know, lightweight, lighthearted brand? It's how people view you, how people would describe your personality. It's your foundation. It's really the base of everything. You know, you build upon that. It's the structure of your company. Values, it's your values. This is something that we're going to talk about a lot further down the line, but You know, your brand DNA says a lot about what you value as a company and as a brand. And it's your vision. It's your vision, whether you're a fashion brand, it's your vision on fashion, it's your vision on technology. And it's your vision not only now, but also looking towards the future. And my next theoretical question to analyze is, what is your mission statement? Now, a mission statement is a short statement of why an organization exists, what its overall goal is, identifying the goal of its operations, what kind of product or service it provides, its primary customers and market, and its geographical region of operation. A mission statement basically answers the three most important questions about a company, which is the why, the what, and the how. So the reason we stay loyal to brands is really because of their values. As I mentioned before, the best brands strive to combine physical, emotional, and logical elements into one customer experience that you value as much as they do. These values should be visible inside a company's mission statement. So when I work a lot now, as Leo mentioned, I work as a consultant for a lot of brands. And when I first start working with them, whether they be established brands in the industry already or emerging brands, I always ask them about their mission statement. And surprisingly, a lot of us, you know, especially like smaller brands starting off, don't have a mission statement. And I always focus on this because I think it's so important, because it really is kind of like the doctrine of your company. It's basically in one or two short phrases sums up what your company is and who it believes in it. And it's an important thing to have, not only for yourself, I think, as a founder, as a creative director, as a designer. It's important for your employees. It's important that, you know, as people come in, they understand. It's almost kind of like a mantra for a company. You know, they understand what it is that they're doing, what it is that the company does, what it stands for, what it believes in, who its customer is. It's so important because it's really, without having this clear, it's often very hard to move forward and to make decisions and to grow organically as a brand. And so with the mission statement, one should always focus on your intention. And the more precise you are, the more successful you are as a brand. So I've pulled together on the next couple of slides, three mission statements I found from three very different companies, so you can kind of get an idea of what I mean when I talk about the mission statement. So the first one is Warby Parker, and this one I'm going to explain a bit because since I know we have people connecting from all over the world, it might not be a brand that people are as familiar with. So Warby Parker, their mission statement is to offer designer eyewear at a revolutionary price while leading the way for socially conscious businesses. So Warby Parker, if you don't know, or if you're like me who have incredibly bad eyesight, eyewear is very expensive. Anything from buying contacts is extremely expensive, but also buying just seeing glasses. You know, it's very hard. One always wants to look good when they're wearing glasses. And it's very hard to find a decent frame at an affordable price. Or at least before Warby Parker came into the picture. Because when you add to that, then you have to add your prescription. And if you're like me, who has very, very bad eyesight, then you have to buy a special type of lens that's thinner so that you don't have to worry about having these bottle caps on your eyes when you're wearing your glasses. So one of the founders of Warby Parker, the story is that they lost their eyeglasses on a trip while they were in college, and they couldn't afford to buy a new pair of glasses. So they went through an entire semester basically without being able to see. And what they discovered was, you know, it's really an issue, particularly in the US and I'm sure worldwide, that, you know, many people, they believe that seeing, and which it is a right that we all have. You know, it's an essential that we all have, and it's very expensive, and many people don't have access to proper eyewear because of the price. And therefore that stunts them in the way they grow, in the way they work, the way they grow. And they decided to start this business where basically they would offer a stylish, affordable designer eyewear at a decent price. And basically when you buy this frame, you get, they add the prescription for free. And they also have a program where they work together with charities across the world, where if you buy a pair, they donate a pair to those in need, those who can't afford. So as you can see, it's really such an innovative business model that didn't exist before. This is a very new company that basically was solving a problem. And as you can see, they actually have like a purpose built into their brand DNA and their mission statement. The next one is Tesla, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. I love this one because it's so short and so precise, as I mentioned before. The more precise, the successful, but you get a clear grasp of what the company is all about. And the last one is, this one's very different from Tesla. It's a bit more expansive, a bit more elaborate, but you also get the sense of what, when you enter into the Man Repeller website, you know what you're going to find. So Man Repeller explores the expansive constellation of things women care about from a place of openness and humor, with the conviction that an interest in fashion doesn't minimize one's intellect. So just by this phrase, you understand that, what you're going to find is fashion. You understand the personality, it's a place of openness and humor, but it also talks about things that are actually important to the broader world and not just, superficial topics. Now, a mission statement is looks a lot easier than it actually is. Actually, if you go into the Man Repeller website and you find the mission statement, they discuss how this, they came to this one short phrase after dozens and dozens and dozens of back and forth emails discussing, what should the mission statement be. So for that, I want to go forward to discuss how do you find your mission statement? How do you find your brand DNA? And there's a famous, I normally show this video, but I'll basically sum it up. There's a famous TED Talk by Simon Sinek, who's an author and motivational speaker. And he talks about what he calls the golden circle. And basically what he says is that most of us, these are the three most important questions that as a brand, as leaders, we have to face and we have to answer. And most people in the world operate from the outside in. But the most inspiring companies operate from the inside out. So most people know what they do and they know how they do it. When I was an editor at a magazine, and people always love to ask, but what do you do? Oh, you're an editor, wow. But what do you do? What does that mean? And I would explain how we put together the magazine, know exactly how you do it. But very few people know how to answer why, or know the answer to why they do what they do. But what, as Simon Sinek explains, is that discovered basically, is that the most inspiring companies and most inspiring leaders work in the complete opposite direction. They start with the why. And the example that he gives is Apple. Apple's a very successful company that we all know, and we probably all have part of our lives in one way or another. They start with the why. Why do we do what we do? Because we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. I mean, their famous advertisement, which still applies to today, is their, think different. And that is basically the essence of their company. How do they do it? They do it through technology, through innovative technology, through sleek design. What do we do? Well, we sell computers. Well, what Simon Sinek goes on to explain is that basically a company who operates this way, if you connect with people through your why, if people can connect with you through your values, then you can basically sell them anything, which is true, because if you think about it, Apple is a computer company, but they also sell us Apple TV, and they sell us iPods, and they sell us cell phones. They can sell us anything because we connect with them on the most basic level, and it's thinking differently. It's challenging the status quo, and we believe in the way that they do it. And today, the truth is today, in coronavirus times and post-coronavirus times, this why is going to be more important than ever. Think of it as the heart and soul of your company. The why is truly the heart and soul of your company. It should be. And when you connect, and if you think about it, really, it makes perfect sense, because when we as people connect with someone, it's because of chemistry. It's because we believe in the same things they believe in. We have the same values they do. We like the same things. We like the same causes, and it should be the same with the company. The reason somebody connects with the company is because of what is the heart of the company. What does that company believe in? Because at the end of the day, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And this is so important. This phrase, I highlight it because it's so, so true. Why does not equal profit. It's important to keep in mind that profit is a result of what you do, but it shouldn't be the main driver of what you do. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? I think, pre-coronavirus crisis, we were living this moment of like oversaturation of brands, so many profit-driven brands out there, but not enough purpose. There were, tons and tons of product launches, a numbers focused economy where it was, all about the followers you had, the amount of products you could launch. And there really wasn't purpose behind it. We were just kind of running around, not knowing why we were doing what we were doing. And I think that's why now more than ever, we need to have in mind that, of course, while profit is a goal, we're not, as a business, you're not necessarily just a charity. Your product or service needs to have substance, because people, going back to what Simon Sinek says, people don't buy why you do what you do. Don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So for example, if you're a shoe designer, there's tons of shoe designers out there in the world. And why are people going to buy your product versus another shoe designer? Price could be, obviously a factor into it. But really, if you have a similar price, you're in the contemporary category, let's say, your price isn't going to vary much from your neighbor. Why are they going to buy what you produce? Is it because you're employing artisans? Is it because maybe you work with a certain type of sustainable fabric and that's what they believe in? At the end of the day, they're going to go to you because they're going to believe in the model behind your business, not just what you put out. And it's in this why that you can find your purpose. So Adam Smith was an economist, a famous economist and philosopher. He's often called the father of economics or the father of modern capitalism. And basically, he said, companies exist to create value for community and society. And while, this is obviously a very simplistic idea, I think since we're in this moment right now of resetting, and as we rethink how we're going to move forward into the future, it's actually a very important thing to have in mind. We should really keep this idea of, the idea of creating value for the community and society in our minds and hearts of our brands. What value are you creating for your community? Businesses as a whole should have an obligation to create value for society that go beyond simply providing goods and services for sale. How are we making money in a way that creates value for our society? How can we use business thinking and brand and our creativity to solve problems or social issues? How can we create products or services that tackle humanitarian or environmental issues? I've been talking with a lot of designers, and I feel, obviously as designers are worried about selling because they need to maintain their businesses, and they're worried about the future. Are they going to be able to survive this? What I'm finding so beautiful is that in becoming so relevant is there's this like wider sense of community. They're worried about the artisans that they employ. Here in Colombia, you have, a lot of designers who employ artisans who help them create their product. And while they're maintaining their commitments to them and they're trying to keep, them employed, they're coming together to try to find ways and working with ONGs to try to find ways to keep, to protect the livelihood of these artisans. There's this wider sense of community, and I think we need to continue with this mindset and start putting the community, our community, in the center of what we do and how we work. And that is precisely what purpose is. So moving forward, and when we think about purpose, we have to ask ourselves a lot of questions. And in order to ensure that we truly have a purpose, that our company and our brands have a purpose, we need to be able to answer at least 4 out of 5 of these questions. What is the purpose behind what you do? As Simon Sinek asked in this video, why do you get up in the morning? And it's not just to say, how uninspiring to say, oh, because I need to make money. No, why do you get up, get dressed, and go to your office in the morning? How are you inspiring people by what you do? And that includes how you're inspiring yourself. It's so important to inspire ourselves first before we inspire other people. Who are you helping with your product or service? What is your brand's role in people's lives? How are you making their lives easier somehow? And so these are 6 pillars that I believe are important to address when you're defining your brand purpose. First and foremost is the customer. Do I have a specific audience in mind? So if we go back to what Adam Smith said about, creating value for the society and for the community, you have to have a specific customer in mind to do that. Like who are you speaking to? You can't just be, speaking to a huge audience. you have to understand what your customer needs in order to address it and in order to make their lives easier in some way. What added value am I adding? This goes back to, the why. What, a shoe, yes, we have millions of options of shoes that we can buy, but what is the added value to the product that I'm offering? Or what added value am I offering to the world? So the Warby Parker example, if somebody buys one of their glasses, they also donate a pair of glasses to somebody in need who can't afford it. Uniqueness. I can't stress uniqueness enough, because it really is also part of that differentiating factor of what makes you valuable as a brand. Is my product or is my service authentic and unique? Is there a niche for what I do? I think authenticity is so important to really have a solid brand DNA. There's so many brands out there, I think, that just, jump on the bandwagon and maybe are motivated by the wrong things. And that's often very obvious in their brand DNA and in the way they message, because they really don't, how many brands have you seen out there that create beautiful images on Instagram and ad campaigns, but for some reason there's something missing. It doesn't connect with you. And that's because, they're not finding that uniqueness. They're just, sometimes it just feels like there's another one. And to me, that's truthfully pollution. If your brand is out there and it doesn't have some sort of unique value, then you're just one other. Now, sustainability is the next one. And this is a whole other topic of conversation. But I think, now, if you're, I know out there, people connecting right now, maybe in different phases of their businesses. You may just be starting off, you may be, a few years down the line. But basically now is the time to really, really focus. This is a word that has been thrown out there a lot, but moving forward, I think sustainability needs to be at the center of what you do and needs to be involved in all parts of your brand and your platform. And especially for brands starting off, really before you start off and you work on your brand DNA, how do you incorporate the sustainable aspect to your brand? How do you ensure that, from A to Z, your brand is 100% sustainable? So am I paying my employees correctly? Are the processes that we are using correctly? Is the packaging that we're using sustainable? Is the company in general a sustainable company? It's very, very important, and sustainability should be it could be your purpose. It could also be just, another component of your brand DNA, but it should be worked into your brand DNA. Collaborative. Is your brand collaborative? Now, I'm going to talk about this a bit further, but collaboration, I think we're seeing now is really what's going to get us out of this, and it's going to be the stepping stone to the future. Are there opportunities, with your brand? Think if there's opportunities for collaboration to serve and empower broader platforms. So not just about, who you employ and the artisans you work with. It's also how can you get together with other companies? How can you get together with other communities to serve a broader platform so that your brand has a much more far-reaching effect than just, servicing just the people who buy your product. Service, how am I improving my customer's life? So service could be, if you're a business or a brand that offers a service, but also even if you're a business or a brand that, is a clothing brand, how's the service? How do you treat your customers? How can you improve their life, even if it's just by bringing a smile on their face every day? Service is often very underestimated, and especially in the fashion industry, where I think it's often we're seen as, superficial industry, very distant, very cold, very snobbish. How can you really incorporate this aspect of service? I mean, how many times have you been to a restaurant that you love, that's very well known for the food, but you say, oh, but the service is terrible? And oftentimes that will eventually prevent you from going, because you just, is the food good enough to, deal with the terrible service? So that's a very important thing to also think about with your brand as another factor in your brand. It's not just the product you offer, but really the way you deal with your customers. And lastly is longevity. Can I see this project relevant in 5, 10, 20 years? As I was mentioning before, I with my work, I go to a lot of fashion weeks and a lot of trade shows. And you see so many designers, and it happens particularly, I'm sure, in other parts of the world, but I can speak about Latin America, is if you have one brand who's super successful, then you see 20 more sprout up that are doing exactly the same thing or trying to imitate exactly the same thing. And, because it's, someone will say, big, trendy, big earrings are in style. And I know this artisan that I can work with that can make these trendy earrings right now, and, I can make a buck. If that's your motivation, is that really going to last? Or is that, are you going to be able to take that, and build that brand 5, 10, 20 years from now? Are you really building something that has substance, or are you just jumping on a trend because it's easy and you want to make a quick buck? Like that is very underestimated, and I think very few people talk about that. But for me, that's also going back to, it's pollution, it's contamination. It's, are you creating a product that you just want to make a quick buck that, 5 years down the line when someone cleans out their closet, they're going to be like, oh, remember when these things were in style, and throw them away? No, you want to build products that have qualitative, authentic products that last and that you want to pass on from one generation to another, and that you can build upon as your company grows. So with this being said, as you can see, a solid brand DNA will really guide you in the decision making within every aspect of your company, and will hold true throughout the years. It's basically the building blocks of a company and in turn of an industry. So when I, just to as an example, when I was an editor in the magazine, like I worked for 10 years at Vogue, and I had this, the brand DNA of the company so ingrained in me. And it was often, a term that we threw out there when we were putting together the magazine, or when we were deciding to participate in a certain event or to interview a certain person is, is this Vogue? Or no, this doesn't feel very Vogue. That is a successful brand DNA. If it's when you have it so, it becomes like a verb almost, you have it so clear that it helps you decide every step of the way whether something is in line or not in line with your brand. And as we move forward, it's also important to have this because, you have so many companies as like Vogue. Vogue was created years ago, and it's been passed on from generation to generation. And those people, whether it's, your son or your daughter who inherits the company, or it's, a new CEO, if you have built a very solid roadmap for the company, and if you have incorporated purpose, then you ensure that that purpose is passed on from generation to generation. It doesn't disappear with time. It's basically going back, it's unchangeable. It's part of the company's unique characteristics and traits that anything that they do, they cannot remove that purpose. They cannot remove, that DNA from their brand. And I'll give you an example so that you can understand, how powerful a strong story and a strong, authentic DNA can be for generations and generations. So Louis Vuitton, we all know Louis Vuitton. Here's their mission statement: to represent the most refined qualities of Western art de vivre, art of living, around the world, to be synonymous with both elegance and creativity, to blend tradition and innovation and kindle dream and fantasy. So this is Mr. Louis Vuitton, who founded his company in 1854. And basically the brand started, he started by making trunks. Traveling was very different back then. People traveled with their trunks, and you had this issue of space. And, he invented the idea of these stackable trunks. They were qualitative, they were innovative at the time. And now moving forward, as you know, as the Golden Circle shows, brands who start from the inside out, they basically can sell you everything. So basically, although he started, making trunks, today it's a company that we honestly relate to fashion and handbags and leather goods, and they've even started in the beauty aspect. So basically, if you have this idea of, creativity, innovation, the art of living, the art of traveling, which is basically what he developed, you can sell your customer anything. If your values are in line with your customer's values, you can sell your customer anything. And as you can see, several years ago in Paris, they did this amazing exhibition inspired by the art of travel. And it started off, with the original trunks that he created, then trunks that they've created for Wes Anderson films and for different celebrities. But then it also goes on to show collections that were created by Marc Jacobs and past creative directors, where all of this were related to the art of travel, this idea of travel, this idea of creativity, this idea of innovation. it's really such a strong storytelling and marketing tool that, from starting off in the 1800s to today, 2020, they can still communicate as a brand. And all these are part of the exhibition. And then you have this collection that they did last year, the cruise collection, which was done at the TWA Flight Center. So when you have this really strong DNA, this really strong story and background, creative directors years in the future can go back and look at what, they have it so ingrained in them, and then they can use their creativity and their innovation to create new products. This was another collection that they did in Rio de Janeiro, inspired again in this art of travel, this futurism. And today, they're still applying this creativity, this innovation to the current COVID-19 crisis in the production of hospital gowns and masks for the frontline workers. Now, another example, also completely different, also a brand, but a media platform basically, is Leandra Medine. She started her blog in 2010. She was a blogger, she was in school and hoping, that maybe her blog would help her find a job in the future. But basically she focused on, something that felt authentic to her love and her passion for fashion. And this idea, she clung on to this idea that basically, us women, there's kind of this like concept and this stereotype where, fashion, basically you're a man repeller. You repel men because, you're seen as very superficial and focused, on just fashion and wearing these strange clothes. And, she used her incredibly talented, her skill of writing and her wittiness and her humor to show, connect with her community and all these people, talented like lawyers and doctors that love fashion, but also connected with her in the sense of like, hey, we're not just fashion obsessed people. We're intelligent women who happen to, be interested in topics that interest women. And today, 10 years later, she has a full-on 360-degree media company. And while she does talk about fashion, obviously it's still a big part of her brand DNA, she can take on different topics from, from beauty to, just marriage. She's talked about pregnancy on her blog, topics that interest women from a very different, unique, personal, relatable standpoint. And she's built this community out of it. She's even, she's done events such as she did the Man Repeller Hotel several years ago in New York, where, many of her followers came and they did a sleepover over the weekend in this hotel in New York. And they had activities such as, yoga or Pilates classes in the morning. And they had, her favorite foods, because she talks a lot about, she's very health conscious, and she talks a lot about the foods that she likes. And, she's created this community. And again, it goes back to, if you can connect with your audience, you can basically sell them anything. And that's why it's so important to really find that why and that purpose behind what you do. And even, going further, she's also a designer. She sells accessories. She sells, she had a shoe brand at one point. She had sunglasses. All under this umbrella, all under this community, this Man Repeller community she connects with and really connects with her. She even did a collaboration with an ice cream company. That's how strong and powerful her brand is, that she can sell. She started as a blogger talking about fashion, and today she can even sell you an ice cream. And basically, this is kind of a more visual graphic aspect that explains how, this brand DNA can help you tell your story. It's part of your story, and it applies into everything that you do. And that's why it's so important to really, once you find and incorporate that purpose in the brand DNA, that it means that you're adding purpose to every single step in the process, in your creative process, in your brand and your company's process, from, finding the inspiration from the design of your product, from how you communicate with your audience, the marketing, the retail and sales aspect, the service aspect that we were talking about earlier, and the PR and events. And so basically, in this time of, COVID-19 and how we're going to move past this, it's important to understand that, yes, we're designers, yes, we're entrepreneurs, we're artists, we're salespeople, but we're also storytellers. And we tell these stories through our product and through our service. So, I was talking recently in a live, and I said something that, it resonated with a lot of people. And it's the truth is that, as an industry, in the fashion industry, our most valuable asset is our creativity. We have probably the most creative people in the world working in our industry. So now is really a time to stop and think, as an industry level and, bring it down to a brand level, is how are we using our creativity to inspire and to lead with purpose? How are we creating loyalty to that product or service? And how are we investing through our product or service in the greater good? How can we apply our creativity as designers, our talent as entrepreneurs and salespeople? How can we tell this story and tell it with a purpose? And so I think moving forward, one of the main components is going to be thinking about the local acting. This was part of a slide from, a year ago, but I think now more than ever, it's so much more relevant. I've always believed in supporting local design and, getting inspired. Obviously, it's part of your DNA, where your brand was born, where you're based, what the things you see every day that inspire you are part of your DNA. But now more than ever, it's so important to really focus on your own country. And I think moving forward, customers are really going to look for that right now. Once we get out of this, we don't know when we're going to get out of this, but once we do, everybody has like a family member, or everybody's going to want to help, their local community, because, everybody knows somebody who might have a business and is going to know how much they're struggling because of this, and is going to want to first help, if they're going to have limited budgets, but they're going to want to invest it in first building their community. And so, I always encourage designers to take inspiration from their own country, which is so important. But I think now moving forward, it's also important to think about how you can, through your brand, serve as an international platform for your country's talent and your country's creativity. Talk about who you are, talk about where you live and who made your product. So as an example, recently I hopped on a call with a designer who, sought me out because they were a bit lost with all this, that, she was telling me, like, listen, how do I communicate? I need to sell. The truth is, and that's the truth, there's so many designers out there that need to sell. I have these people I employ, I want to keep employing them, I have all this product, but I don't want to feel like tone deaf in the way that I communicate. So this particular designer, she's Latin, and she works, what she does, her product is handbags, mainly like mochilas, which she works with the YU community in Venezuela and Colombia. But what her unique standpoint is that her audience is in the US, it's not Latin, it's in the US, it's in Europe, it's in Asia. So I told her, this is really a moment where you can use your platform and use your tell your story, to use as marketing, but also to educate, also to inspire. What's beautiful about her is that her mother is part of the YU community. That's how she even knows about this and got involved in the first place. And so I told her, why so many people, your clients mostly buy your product because it's cute and, it's trendy and it's fashionable, but they probably don't know this whole story behind it. So why don't you right now use your platform to, you take inspiration from your country, but share that with others. Like, talk about the YU community, let people know, like, you employ all these people and you want to help keep them alive. Right now, their livelihood is at risk because they can't afford to buy, food at the market because they rely on just this one craft. And right now, nobody's buying that one craft. So why don't you tell this story of who these people are and talk about your mother and your roots and show pictures of the Guajira region, which is where the YU community is based. Show pictures of that. A lot of people out there don't know that. And right now they wanna learn. I mean, we're all here right now in this webinar learning. They want to feel inspired, inspire them by these beautiful images. Talk about these people, what is the purpose? The purpose behind this brand is you're supporting these people, and really use that as a tool to not only tell your story, but also to educate and to serve as a platform for this community. And so as an example to close, I want to discuss, give an example of a local designer for me, Joanna Ortiz. As many of you know, she's, very well known right now. She's a Colombian designer. She started years ago, but it was maybe in the last 7 or so years that she really, was put in the spotlight internationally, and she's become one of Moda Brandy's best-selling designers. But what's beautiful about Joanna Ortiz is that all her, she really has a luxury product she sells next to the biggest brands in the world, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. People, she's covet her dresses. Everybody wants to have a dress in one of her dresses in their closet. And her brand is 100% made in Colombia. So traditionally, we've always thought of luxury brands, being made in Paris, in Italy, in the United States. But, she is really one of several who showed that luxury could be made in Colombia. And it's really a part of her brand DNA. It's a part of who she is. I found this perfect explanation. It's basically kind of like a mini mission statement, although it wasn't written by her, but basically it says, Joanna Ortiz captures the spirit of Latin America. She sells a lifestyle of exotic vacation living. Ortiz is proud of her heritage, which has a strong influence on her creative aesthetic. In an effort to give back to the community, her label places high priority on working with indigenous communities and women in Colombia. So here it tells you, what the brand, what is her why? She sells this lifestyle that, is inspired in her heritage. And it basically, it's relevant in each piece that you buy from her. And her purpose is that she employs these indigenous communities and women in Colombia. And as I mentioned earlier, she really embodies this idea that the future is in collaboration. Because each season she collaborates with different Colombian accessories designer to complement her collection. So basically, she's not only, inspired by her country and by her region, Latin America. So she's taking inspiration from her country and she's employing indigenous women and artisans to create this luxury product. But she's also collaborating. She seeks out other designers, other local designers who also employ other communities of artisans or of women in the world. So really through her platform, she is really empowering and broadening her reach and helping to really, build that, putting that sense of community into her product. And on that note, I want to end with this quote that I recently saw from Stella McCartney, where she was speaking of sustainability. But as you can see, I think it really applies to, everything that we do. And as an industry, we can come together. If each of us really build purpose into our brands, we can reset and rebrand the fashion industry into an industry with true purpose. And it says, the minute we all join hands and have the same mission and same honest approach, we'll get there. So that's it. And I'm ready for questions.
Kelly, that was so interesting as usual. So you do have a lot of questions. I just wanted to say I love what you said about local and taking inspiration from your own country, and also that you can take that internationally to inspire and educate others. I love that. And it seems like such a easy thing to do, to think about your brand identity and your brand DNA, but it's actually hard. So as you can see, like the questions, it really is. And that's why some make it and some don't, I guess.
Exactly.
But yeah. So going into the questions, I've been flagging them. So let's begin with, so you have one that says, so many companies that target price-sensitive consumers are not so worried about their why, since their customer is searching for value. That's the what, isn't it? So this one is about, yeah, so she thinks that people are not worried about their why, since their customer is searching for value.
I guess when they mean value, yeah, they're looking for price value, and people obviously they do. I think they do put a value on price, and that's a reality. But I think moving forward, I think we're going to have a very different reality. I think, people, we also need to educate the consumer. And I think people need to start thinking about, of course you can find a product that is cheap, but then the quality, it also comes out expensive, because then that quality of that product does not meet the standards that you're looking for. So it is an investment, it is still something that you're buying that you're not going to be able to keep for a while in your closet. So I think it's kind of changing this whole mindset. And yes, if you, like I mentioned, profit is important and it is a result of what we do. But I think if you, think about Apple, just using the example of Apple. Apple is so expensive. I mean, it was expensive back then. It just gets more and more and more expensive. But we all have it. You somehow find the consumer somehow will forego buying other things because they believe in Apple and they love to own their Apple computers. So they will find a way to buy it, to finance it, to do whatever they do. They find a way to buy it. And I think that's the end goal at the end of the day, is to really create a product or create a service that people will, shuffle around their budgets because they believe in this product that you buy, that you create.
Right. So, yeah, actually, you have another related question to this because she says, in COVID times, we'd like to think that brands that will survive are the ones focused on the why and sustainability. But really, when people are suffering economically, they usually turn to fast fashion. So what do you think about this? Do you think we'll turn to fast fashion or will like go to products like, well, brands like Apple that have created that, purpose?
I think truthfully, we may shop less, but I truthfully think that there's two ways to go about it. Yes, you can say that, okay, if you want to buy a lot, then you're going to buy a ton of fast fashion. But, we're basically all going to have, let's say, less money in our pockets. I think there's a lot of people in conversations that I'm having is that people are going to want to buy something with a purpose. So like, I think, again, we're going to go back to, once we can all go back out there and we start to have maybe a little bit more buying power, you're going to want to help your local community first because you know that they need it. You know that your local community, it's the most relatable at the moment. It's, you know that they employ a lot of people and our economies are going to be shot after this and we're going to need to help boost our economies. And we all need to start locally. So I think when I put my money into something, I want it to be something that, my dollar after this is going to be so much more valuable to me than it ever was before. So I'm going to make sure that I want to invest it in something, invest it well into something. And not just, whether it's a blouse that then I can use in many different work meetings because, it's a value and it has, so many different ways of wearing it than just a fast fashion piece that, I'm not going to be able to wear all that much. And I can't be going shopping all the time. So I really would rather invest my money, my hard-earned money into something that is going to give me much more use out of it and that I'm going to be more proud to wear, So if you see me wearing that blouse so many times, well, you know what? I supported the 50 women who made this blouse, and I didn't just buy something in fast fashion. I'm going to be much prouder to wear that piece and to rewear it and rewear it again. So, I mean, I think that's how a lot of people are thinking. And I think, we actually need to get out of that bubble of like, oh, fast fashion, I need to invest in fast fashion. No, why don't you use that, $200 that can, yes, buy you maybe 10 pieces at H&M, but, to buy one blouse that you can actually probably get way more use out of and feel prouder wearing it and know that that money is going back to your local community.
Yeah, something that makes you feel good about. Actually, you have one related to this as well. So Alexandra Hill just asked, do you think that brands not focusing on sustainability will survive post-COVID-19?
Absolutely. I saw an interesting quote from Maria Cornejo, who's a fashion designer in New York. And, she said, and this is something that you also as a brand need to think about, it's not just about being a sustainable brand. I think people are not going to, and it's true, people are not only going to buy your product because you're a sustainable product. You also have to create desire. You need to be a beautiful product. So when you ask that question, I think it's, you need to incorporate it into your brand DNA, but your brand DNA, as I mentioned, needs to have personality. It needs to have an identity. It can't just fall on the fact that it's sustainable. Because people are not going to buy you just because you're a sustainable brand if you're not putting out product that's actually enticing and inspiring. It also needs to inspire. When I talk about sustainability, it's not just like, that's not just like, hey, that's your selling point, that's your purpose. No, you need to be a brand. You need to create a product that people actually like, but make sure that that product is sustainable.
Yeah, that's exactly what Asla said the last webinar. So the co-founder of Modo Operandi, that it doesn't just need to be sustainable, it also needs to look good because in the end it's fashion. So actually, regarding what we were just talking about, someone's asking what the difference is between brand DNA and brand identity. Are they both the same thing? So before we move on to the different questions, maybe let's answer this one.
Basically, brand identity is part of your brand DNA. Your DNA is your identity as a brand. Our DNA is what makes us unique. It's what our identity is. So yes, I mean, basically the two terms can be interchangeable, although I would say more like identity is part of, this broader spectrum of your brand DNA.
Right. So another like more general question. Do you think that as a result of this current crisis, many brands will have to reinvent themselves and by that review their brand DNA? And also related to this, Andrea Gonzalez asked, can a brand DNA evolve with time? And if so, if what's the right way to communicate who you are as a company at a specific moment in time? I'm thinking particularly that after this COVID-19 crisis, some companies may want to repurpose their mission and values and share this with the consumers.
I do think right now is a time to sit down and you know, that's why I mentioned in the beginning, is like, let's go back and look at the definition of brand DNA. Let's go back and look at what exactly is a mission statement, because right now, like, I think there was so many brands out there that were just, you know, operating on profit, and not really, and that's why, you know, as consumers, I think all of us felt saturated. You know, you go into a store and there's so much information. You go onto a website, you know, Net-a-Porter, Brand New, there's so much product out there. And how do you differentiate, you know, this handbag from that handbag? So yes, I think now is a time to sit down and really reevaluate your brand DNA. But make sure that it's long lasting. You know, you can't sit down every year. I think this is a particularly unique moment that none of us has ever lived in, and it's really affected our industry. So that's why we do need to sit down and think what it is that we're doing, why are we doing what we're doing, and reevaluate it. But, you know, once you sit down, I think it's really to create something that will continue with time. You know, you can't next year say, you know, after COVID, hey, let me sit down and reevaluate my brand DNA. But yeah, that being said, I think a lot of people, and the sad reality is that a lot of brands are not going to survive, because if they don't have that strong loyalty, you know, some people are really going to hit rock bottom, and maybe to get out of it, they're going to need their community, and they're going to need people. And again, people are going to seek out those brands that they most connect with. If you're just, you know, a brand that, you know, was really not connecting with your audience, you were just out there to make a profit, then you might not survive, because people coming out of this might not seek you out. You know, you're not at the top of mind. You're not inspiring them. So yes, the sad reality is that I think a lot of brands are going to disappear, and I think those who disappear will be the ones who are lacking that purpose, that inspiration, that added value that you're offering to your consumers.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's sad, but it's, if you don't have that strong DNA, you're not gonna be unique. You need to have that differentiation. So regarding the slide where you had, you know, customer, added value, uniqueness, and so on, you have a question. Are these principles valid for personal brands too? Can people be ruled by these ideas? And also, Estefania, similar question. Can we evaluate a personal brand as we do with regular businesses? Should we use the same criteria that you are showing here to create a solid personal brand, or is it a whole different thing?
No, absolutely. I think, I mean, that's why I gave the example of Man Repeller, because if you think about it, you know, she started with Leandra Medine. I mean, I feel like I call her Man Repeller. You know what I mean? Like that's her name. That's who she is, you know, and she's been able to build this community outside of it. And now, you know, we get to know other members of the team. But I think her personality is so ingrained into that brand. And so absolutely, I think it is a personal brand. I think, you know, you do, as a personal brand, you do have an audience. You know, I mentioned about consumer. You know, who's your audience, who's listening to you, how are they connecting with you because, you know, you talk about issues, you know, about motherhood, or are they connecting with you because, you know, you have this certain take, as Leandra did with fashion, you know, this idea of like, I don't care if I repel men, I'm going to wear what I like. It empowers me, and it doesn't make me superficial, it doesn't make me unintelligent. I just happen to like fashion. I'm going to express who I am through fashion and through my writing. So yeah, I think it definitely applies. Even the longevity aspect, you know, like how, you know, I've also consulted actually with a blogger, and it's also, you know, she's currently in the process of getting married, and, you know, she was already thinking like, how am I going to connect? You know, I know eventually, you know, I'm going to get married, but then I'm also going to have children. How do you keep your audience growing with you through all these phases? You know, does your product, if you just focus, if you're a personal brand who just focuses on, you know, the fun single life, then are you going to be able to take that? You know, you might lose your followers along the way as you grow, if you meet somebody, if you get married. So I think those are important things to keep in mind. Like, don't just, you know, keep yourself in a box, or at least have very clear who your audience is and how you want to continue communicating with that audience throughout the years.
Right. So I think that that answers another question, which was, can we change our purpose midway? Like if our brand evolves, is it possible to change previous narrative? So maybe like, again, like Leander Medine with Man Repeller, I guess you can change your purpose midway.
You can, but I still think that there's kind of, you definitely can, obviously, because I think you also grow. I mean, for example, sustainability. I mean, I recently became very active. Not that I was not into it before, but maybe I wasn't as educated on the topic before, and now I'm much more
Mm-hmm.
active on that issue. So I definitely think that you can, we all grow as people, we learn new things, and then those new things interest us. But I think at the heart of it, there still has to be that like kind of brand DNA. So yeah, definitely Leandra Medine, for example, grew into the media company that she is, but there's still that same like witty voice that she uses. There's still like a big, the fashion is still that Man Repeller type fashion. She's not now all of a sudden became a mom and became boring. You know what I mean? And then her fashion
Right.
changed. I mean, I think her style, her aesthetic continued, and she really built this community of intelligent women who are not afraid to show this side of themselves, this fashion side of themselves. So yes, your purpose can grow, it can change, it can evolve, but I still think, it has to relate somehow to one certain set of characteristics that defines you and what you believe in.
Right. Your core values.
Exactly.
So Vanessa asks, how can companies still maintain their brand DNA even though they are selling products or services that are very different as the one they started with? Does the brand DNA change here or only evolves?
I think it's like going back to like the example of Louis Vuitton, or if you talk about Chanel. I mean, you're not changing the brand DNA. I mean, Chanel was a forward-thinking, innovative, rebellious woman who was always, she wore pants when it was unheard of for a woman to wear pants. And she really is part, as you can continue to see the brand evolve, you always go back to this story of Chanel and her life. I mean, they've done collections inspired. For example, they did, the collection in Dallas. Dallas was the Dallas was the first city that she sold in, because Neiman Marcus was like based in Dallas, and it was the first retailer that believed in Chanel and brought Chanel to the U.S. So I mean, I think as you grow, you can, and you sell different products. It's kind of like what I said. I think with Louis Vuitton, it's all about, this art of travel, this using creativity, using innovation, and creating different products, but still applying the same mindset, still applying the same brand story to the different products that you create. So again,
Right.
the DNA should not be changing constantly. Your product can change, but the belief of, Apple, think differently, innovation, challenging the status quo, they apply that to everything that they do, and that hasn't changed. The product has
Right.
changed, but that hasn't changed.
Right. And from Carolina, do you have any tips or advice to make a brand's DNA or mission statement stand out among so many brands saturating the market landscape?
Well, I think that goes back to, just telling your story, really incorporating, again, as humans, we're so different. We're so different, the way we view the world. I mean, haven't you, when these brands do all these events, and then all, people you follow on your feed are taking a picture of the same exact thing, but each person has a different viewpoint of it. Each person, it's interesting to see how, this person took it from this angle, this person focused on the shoes of the look, this person focused on this person focused on this. So as human beings, I think we're also different. So I really think it's a matter of really going into, who am I? What do I believe in? What feels authentic to me? And that's really how you make your brand stand out. And I think, really incorporating that idea of like talent and creativity, but then finding a unique added value, like what, again, going back to, I create this shoe, but why is my shoe different than this? What can I really add? What part of my personality can I add to that product? How can I make it better? Even if it's just through, the customer service that you offer, even if it's through the packaging, even if, how can I add a different layer, a different level, of purpose to this product that I create? And that's as unique as you are. It's really,
Right.
really not focusing on, this brand is this brand is that, just what feels authentic to me. Why is my brand me?
Right. And do you think, well, this one's coming from no one, but do you think
Mhm.
that's something that evolves with time? Like you grow into that as a designer, or should you have that very clear from the start, like before you even think about starting your own company?
Listen, some people have it very clear from the start, and they're very fortunate. But if you talk to a lot of designers, sometimes they say it took them a while to really figure out what their brand DNA, what their purpose is. It's very difficult, and I admire designers who can season after season come up with new product, new collections, new inspirations. But that when you look at all of them, it feels cohesive, and you can tell. A designer who's really made it is when you can see a piece and say, "Hey, is that Esteban Cortázar?" Like,
Right.
that is so unique. That's so special when like somebody, is that Chanel? Like, you see it and you already know without even looking at the logo that it
Who
comes
is?
from that brand. And that
Mhm.
obviously takes a while. It's not, some people do have it from the beginning. I mean, we all have friends who have such a clear sense of aesthetics and everything, and it applies to everything that they do, the way they dress, the way their houses are, the way they carry themselves. And yes, there's some people do have it. Others, have to dig a bit deeper, and really have to,
Mhm.
it's kind of like a trial and error, and really, it takes a while to really like fine tune, that 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 global brand vision.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. So
It
we have
is.
like a different question here. I think it's interesting from Stefania. How a brand can work with, okay, so how can a brand work with indigenous communities and avoid the instrumentalization and looting when crafts are part of the historical legacy of communities, especially considering that these communities have historically suffered from different forms of expropriation?
It's been a challenge, I think, in our industry, and that's, when I was, talking with this designer that I mentioned, I told her a bit like, what's so beautiful and that you can tell this story is because your mother was part of the YU community.
Right.
Because oftentimes it's true, what Estefania says is a lot of people go in, take ideas and inspiration from these communities and then make them their own and then don't credit them at all. I do think that's changing a lot. I do think, there's a lot of
Mhm.
value. So many designers now are really showing the people behind this brand. If you buy a piece, and I always think it's so beautiful, they show, the person behind the brand, a picture of the person or the name of the person, who created that piece, and kind of tells you a bit of a story of who they are. I think, there's so many ways to look at it. And, I think there's the idea of like not just taking from them. And it's kind of like I mentioned it earlier, it's not just taking inspiration from your country. It's also like serving as a platform for them and educating them, helping them get ahead. So it's not just about working with these artisans. I mean, the truth is that they need the money, and they're happy to share their craft and to create this beautiful craft, but it's also giving them credit back and giving them their place, paying them correctly, ensuring that you're
Right.
paying them, correctly, and not just, paying them cheaply because they need the money and they're desperate and they'll take whatever, which often
Right.
happens, sadly. It's also about giving them this platform, maybe also educating them. I think, I've seen many brands who have created kind of these like, collectives and communities, like, because the truth is a lot of these crafts in different countries, obviously there's some countries who promote it more than others, but I went to Bolivia and they have this
Mhm.
particular craft that's endangered of being, of disappearing because, um, not enough people are valuing this idea that not enough people value, or they want to pay very cheap for X product created by the artisans. The artisans are in desperate need of money, so they say yes and they accept, and they don't value their own work, even though it's a type of couture in a way. They don't value the time and energy that has been put into that, and the craftsmanship that's been passed on from generation to generation. So they accept any money. So basically, normally this is something that's passed on from generation to generation, but younger generations, sorry, now younger generations are no longer taking up that craft, and now are going out and finding different jobs, because
Mhm.
they see their parents and like, I don't want to live like that. They don't make enough money. I can't, I can't survive on what they make. So
Right.
basically, there's companies who are going out there and kind of educating them, teaching them how much you should sell your product for, teaching them, how to manage their finances, how to, you know, um, become entrepreneurs in a way, so that this, they can continue selling this craft. They can understand that this can be valuable, this can be a valuable, profession, and that it's not lost on, you know, the next generation, that the next generation does get interested in working in these communities and continue to working on this special trade that they may have that their community might focus on. So I think it's really about, you know, putting them in the center, putting your community in the center of your brand and talking about it. Actually, this designer that I spoke with had told me, is it okay to talk about the artisans like that? And I'm like, yes, if you're doing it in a respectful way and you're paying them correctly. I mean, for her, in her sense, I mean, it is your heritage. I mean, your mother was part of that community or is part of that community. So I think it's about, you know, offering that respect and actually just giving them a platform. You're giving them a platform where otherwise they would have never been able to share what they do.
Yeah, no, interesting. It's a hard thing for people that are working with those communities about appropriation and everything. But I think what you said, if you're treating them correctly, I mean, you're also helping them. So I think it's good for everyone. So we have a question actually from Filippo. You remember Filippo from the Miami program?
Yes, of course. Hi,
yeah.
Filippo.
So he asked, what do you think about the future of retail? More general question, but your thoughts.
Yeah. I think, listen, I don't think retail is going to disappear. I do think it's going to change, and it's obviously been heavily affected. I think there's going to be a lot of value on direct to consumer. And I encourage, you know, a lot of the brands I speak with, I've encouraged them to really, from before all of this happened, to really build their own platforms, you know, so that they, you know, when crisis like this happens, they can control their product, they can have an outlet to sell. Whether that be, you know, a platform or a store. Ideally, an online platform obviously is easier because it's not affected, you know, the way that when you can't leave your house. But I think direct to consumer is going to take a lead role in the way that we shop. But I also think, you know, obviously big retailers are not going to disappear, but I do think they need to go back to offering that, you know, like very personalized service. I think it needs to become, you know, and they were trying to do this a lot with like, you know, these like special launches and collaborations and pop-up shops and everything. But I really think that they need to go back to like really offering that special service. How are you, you know, going back to that service? Why are people going to go into your store if they can buy it from the designer? You know, what special service, what added value are you offering? And they need to go back to like how retail started in the first place. You know, this relationship, this really intimate, special relationship with your customer, and offering an added value and not just, you know, a big space where you can buy a bunch of brands. So I think, you know, nobody really knows what's going to happen next, but I do feel that this is going to be a trend moving forward. And I do encourage a lot of designers to work on their personal platforms because it can also prevent you, even though sales are down across the board, it is kind of a direct outlet that you have with your customers that if you depend only on retailers who are canceling sales right now, you are left kind of with your hands tied.
Right. Well, it's gonna be hard, but hopefully, yeah. I mean, hopefully people find a way to survive and get through this. So you have a question. I'm gonna do a couple more. You have so many questions, but we're a little bit over time. But so many interesting questions. So this one from Miguel. For example, many fast fashion companies are supporting the local community now with COVID. We have the case of Inditex supporting Spain. Do you think some companies are doing this to keep the support of the society once this period is over? How can we know what company is doing it as a strategy or who is doing it as actual collaboration? So I guess it's about authenticity.
Yeah, it's hard, to be honest, to tell. I can't say what each, you know, company is thinking or doing. And again, I think people are concerned about, you know, making sales and having all this profit. I think it's about what resonates with you, you know. How do you know, does it feel authentic? You know, I've seen so many designers that really have opened up and been like, you know, I'm just as a loss. I don't know how to talk to you guys, and just honestly being like transparent and honest and saying, you know, I'm freaking out about how to pay my employees, but you know, I also I'm freaking out about how, you know, how to move forward with this. So I think it's also just about what resonates with you. I mean, does it resonate with you? Yes, they're doing that. That's great. But does it feel authentic to you? If it does, then great. Then, you can support them. If it doesn't, then no, maybe they're not doing it, for the right reasons. So I think it's so personal. And that's why, going back to that, like finding purpose, connecting with the why, because it really is something that's so personal. You know, I mean, it's maybe I'm getting very personal here, but my father, for example, he doesn't buy Apple. He's never bought Apple because my dad likes to be very different. He doesn't, like to follow the trends. He's one of those people, I'm not going to be, he says, a sheeple that just follows, what everybody else does. So he purposely does not buy Apple, and those are his belief systems, that's who he is. That's part of who he is. So he likes to, he connects maybe with another brand. So I think it's about that. It's really it's so personal about, does it feel right to you, Does it feel like, do you want to follow that or do you not want to follow that?
Right. So two more questions. One from Silvia Soler. She'd like to know your opinion about Saint Laurent's, what they said about the fashion calendar. This is coming in Spanish, sorry, translating.
A lot of people are talking about that, the fashion calendar. I think Giorgio Armani also published a letter with Women's Wear Daily about, how it just was not, we're not keeping up with, it was impossible to keep up with this fashion calendar. And I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that these big brands, I think I even read that Versace as well, Donatella Versace was talking about this. I think it's interesting that these big brands are speaking out and saying hey, it's no longer, this doesn't make sense. And several designers have been doing it and creating their own rules for a while, And I think that's what we need to start, doing as a brand, is not just following, a trend. That's why also this direct to consumer thing is important, because it also allows you to control hey, I only want to produce 3 collections a year. That's all I can do right now, So on my platform, I'm going to sell 3 collections a year. And if brands want to buy me, if stores want to buy me, great. If not, well, I have my platform and I have my community built around this. I do think that we need to focus, how I was saying before, numbers. People are focused on numbers of collections, numbers of product launches. How much can we do? But I think we need to go back to quantity and not so focused. Go back to quality, sorry, and not so focused on quantity, because moving forward, I think that's what people are going to place again. They're going to want to put their dollar into something that's going to last them much longer, and they're not going to be able to be buying every month a new product.
Right. No, it's going to be hard economically after this crisis. So last question, more general question. Networking in fashion is an important part of brand success. How to do it if you have not so many connections with influencers in the fashion industry?
So that's a good question. I think, now as brands, I think we have so much power in our hands because of social media. And, we've seen people go viral who don't necessarily, have all these connections, or not necessarily super, hobnobbing with all the people in the fashion industry. I also think we've seen a lot of campaigns recently that I think is interesting with actually real life women. I mean, I'm sure, if you're a designer in the creative industry, I'm sure very inspiring women, or I don't know what products, it doesn't have to be women, it could be men. I'm sure a lot of inspiring people who don't necessarily work in the fashion industry, but maybe do represent what you believe in as a brand. And I think there's a lot to be said for word of mouth. I think it's not just about, working with this influencer, that influencer, which truthfully nowadays, since we all know that influencers get paid, sometimes, we question, is this really, does she really like this product? Is it really a good product? Or did they pay her really well to post that? So there's a lot to be said about word of mouth and just, everyday normal people, and just getting people, do you have a friend who's a really cool artist, and that you love what she does? So she's most likely surrounded by people, like-minded people who believe in, might be drawn towards your product. So I think it's also just about networking with your own personal community and getting the word out there. And I think it'll come, if you have a truly successful product that people resonate with and people love. It's about making one client happy. And if she's happy, then she'll share that happiness and communicate your brand better than anybody else will, and much better than somebody who's just getting paid to wear it. Right.
And then you just start also building your network. One thing leads to another, and then
exactly. Trunk shows.
Before you know it, you have. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so don't want to end without asking this one because a couple of people asked, Paulina, Mariana, and a couple more. So, do you think it's a good time to launch a new brand or a new project in fashion?
Um, it could be. I've actually seen a lot of people launching projects right now. Whether it be websites, I've been seeing people launch websites. I even saw people launch
Mm-hmm.
a magazine now. And I think right now you have audiences. I mean, if you think, obviously, we don't know. Listen, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when this is going to end. We don't know when people are really going to be ready to shop. But I think it could be, if it really is a brand that has a specific purpose that's maybe addressing an issue that we're all being faced with right now, I think it actually could be the perfect moment to launch, to be honest.
Yeah.
It really all depends on what your product is and what your communication is. And it could be, because somebody asked me this in another interview I did, where they asked, like, how do you communicate a luxury product, now when people are not buying? And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, I mean, maybe people are not buying now, and maybe you launch your brand and it's not about box office sales, I'm going to make all this money right now, but maybe if you're really doing a thoughtful campaign, it's going to stick with people and people are going to remember you once they are ready, so maybe right now is
Right.
about a time to build that audience, to build that community, to connect with people,
Mm-hmm.
and really connect on the why. and
Mm-hmm.
and then once people come out of this, well, they'll already be in sync with your brand and maybe seek you out to purchase.
Yeah.
So I think if you do launch a brand, it's having that in mind. Maybe right now it's not about making money, but it is about communicating, taking this time to communicate and connect with your audience.
Yeah, you never know. It could be a good opportunity. Like if you find the
Exactly.
right, yeah, product or service, you never know. So
Exactly.
entrepreneurs, start thinking.
Exactly. Exactly.
Bueno, thank you so much, Kelly. This was super interesting. I
Thank
hope
you.
you guys that Kelly answered a lot of your questions. Thank you so much for doing this again, and we'll see you, I guess, next time in Miami with our
Hopefully
program
soon.
there, or if not New York first. But stay tuned, you guys. I'm gonna be talking about ESEM. Let me jump right back into that presentation. Thank you, Kelly,
Bye. Thank you.
for
Thank you to
this
everybody for
presentation.
tuning in. Bye.
Let's see. So, ESEM Fashion Business School. As the name says it, we're the fashion business school of the University of Navarra. So, thanks again, Kelly, for doing this. This was amazing. Kelly is a speaker at two of our programs in New York and Miami. So, I'd like to talk to you a bit about our school and what we do. So we were actually the first business school in Spain, specialized in fashion. We've been in business since 2001. What we do is we train professionals with business and leadership skills in order to that want to work in the fashion industry, and our mission is to really professionalize the sector. How do we do it? Well, with a highly specialized program offer with sector-specific training and generating excellent academic content. And we have the support of a lot of fashion companies. We have an extensive network of international academic partnerships as well, and collaborations with former students and more than 1,200 alumni actually working in the industry. Why is ESTEM a unique fashion business school? Because we were born directly from business, not from fashion design, like a lot of this fashion schools. We were always focused on the business side of fashion. We're also located in Spain, which is a country where management, creativity, and retail are very well known in the fashion industry. So if that we have the fast fashion business model. So companies like Inditex, they own Zara, Massimo Dutti, and so on. They're based here, so we have a good relationships with these companies. We're also very big in bridal, with everyone knows Pronovias. We have a lot of children's wear companies, Coco, Mayoral, a lot of them. So we're based in Spain, and we're able to do a lot of company visits and have good relationships with the industry here. We also do seminars every week. They're called fashion seminars, and these help our students gain more knowledge about the industry's main sectors. Also, our programs are meant to be very practical for real life applications so that you can immediately put everything that you learned into practice. We also work hand in hand with the este Business School, which is a very top-rated business school in the world. And we mentor every person, every student has a personal mentor who guides them throughout every course that they do. So what is our academic offer? Our main programs are the FBA. This is our Executive Master in Fashion Business Administration. This is the only official executive fashion MBA in Spain. So that is something that we're very proud of. And you know, you won't find another official certification for a master program executive MBA in Spain. It's an executive format. It's 10 months. It runs September to June, every Friday and Saturday, and it's a 100% in English. So we also have an exchange program with Milan, the University of Bocconi, and in Paris with IFM, or Institut Français de la Mode. This is very amazing because our students get to see how the industry works in Italy and in France, and it's a very enriching experience. Now, the MBA classes are taught by professors from the University of Navarra, also from the este Business School. We have visiting professors and professionals from the industry that come in, and we have guest speakers. For methodology, we use the case method a lot, so we really believe in this. It's a great way of learning. Our students also work on consultancy projects, and they do a business plan project. So there's a lot of teamwork that's involved in their education, and we also do a lot of company visits. So again, with the industry, we're very close with a lot of these companies in Spain, and we're able to visit them. And it's always great to see how they work from the inside and from an insider's point of view. Also, there's a lot of opportunity here. Over 90% of our alumni are actively working in the fashion industry. So we have good network of people. Actually, 98% of our students are employed in the industry. So we have 98% student employment. The average age for people that do this program is around 26 to 27. But of course, I mean, if you're younger or older, it's fine. It depends on your experience and what you want to do in life. You do need to have a bachelor's degree. You need to speak English because it's 100% in English. You need to have some previous professional experience in most cases, but it depends on the person. It doesn't need to be in the fashion industry, but you do need to have some working experience. But you do need to have interest in fashion and in the business side of fashion, of course. And so for your career development, businesses really recognize our students as quality candidates for job positions due to their high level of education and dedication to fashion. And also during the course, our students have the opportunity to do internships in some of these big companies. And those companies, they do recruiting activities at ISEM to identify and hire potential talent. So throughout the year, we'll have companies like Loewe and Elitex come in, and they'll interview our students, and they'll do activities with them in order to find potential talent for their companies. We have another more specialized program for more senior level people. It's called PADEM, an advanced program in fashion business management. Now, this is an intensive management training program for the fashion sector. It lasts 4 months from March to June, and it's every Friday. This one is in Spanish. And we give these students the opportunity to do an exchange program with our own New York program called Fashion Business IQ, which I will talk about in a minute. Slide. Okay, so we have more specialized programs as well. We are working on the format of these two programs, fashion digital strategy and the right product. So the fashion digital strategy will be online, and it's launching soon. So stay tuned. Follow us on our network, Instagram. You have the handle here, @ISEMFBS. Stay tuned. We'll be discussing that soon. We also have the right product program. It's a program that teaches the right way of doing a product. So focus on materials and health and safety, sustainability, and the traceability of each garment, which we think is so important right now, especially. And it's an 8-week, we're working on the format of this program as well. But we also have the summer program. So for people that are interested in the fashion industry, but are not sure if they want to do a master's program or if they want to be in the fashion industry, this is a great introduction program to the industry. It's 2 weeks in Madrid, and it's full-time in Spanish. So our international programs are Miami and New York. So our Miami program is called Fashion Entrepreneurship 101. It's basically, we say it's like a boot camp for fashion entrepreneurs or people that have a project related to fashion that they want to launch or that they want to develop or they want to grow internationally. It's a 2-week program, very intensive. We have amazing people from the industry that come in and do speak. So people like Kelly, and we have amazing professors from ISEM that will build, the idea for this program is to really build your business plan, your marketing plan, and work on your design plan. You're gonna learn how to launch your brand from scratch. Everything is very practical, so you can really, we'll be working with you closely throughout the program to really make sure that you're set up for success. Then we have the New York program. It's called Fashion Business IQ, an insight into the industry. And this one is usually every July. Of course, due to the situation, we're going to have to cancel this year. But this is an amazing program where you gain a 360-degree view of the industry. We have incredible speakers, and so there's a lot of networking opportunity here. These are some of our past speakers. So this is an intensive 1-week program. We usually have professors from prestigious universities in the US come in and speak. So people from NYU Stern, Wharton, FIT, Parsons, Harvard Business School, Boston University. From everywhere, as well as professionals from the industry. So, we've had the president of Jimmy Choo come in and speak. We've also visited Diane von Furstenberg, and she herself came out to speak to our students. So, Kelly has been a speaker here as well. So it's a great way of gaining insight into the industry, seeing how the industry works in the US, how global brands manage in that market. And so it's super interesting. It's usually every July, but this year is canceled. We also have good international alliances. So these are just some of the universities that we have close relationships with and agreements. Some of our other activities include, we have an entrepreneurs club for emerging brands in Spain called The Hive. We also have a fashion technology startup accelerator called Atelier by ISEM. This one's super interesting. So if anyone's in a fashion technology sector, reach out to us. We'd love to hear your projects. This is a great program where we set you up for success. You're paired with a big company in Spain, and they allow you to test your product or your service within their company in real life. So you're able to test it out, see if it works, what doesn't, and then they might buy your service or your product. We also have consulting services. We do a lot of public events, industry meetings, and we're also very big on research. So these are some of the companies that work with ISEM. So you might recognize a lot of these: Loewe, Mango, Inditex, of course, that owns Zara, Massimo Dutti. There's a Tandem Group, which owns Corte Fiel, Adolfo Dominguez, Camper, LVMH. So a lot of good brands that we have relationships with. This is our new campus in Madrid. So it's a very beautiful campus. You're all welcome to come and visit. We'd love to host you there and meet with you. And so thank you so much for attending this webinar. If you're interested at all at ISEM, these are our emails. For our missions is isemadmisiones@isem.es. You can always write to Mercedes with mtool@isem.es, or me, I'm the Director of International Relations, so leonor.silva@isem.es. So these are our emails. We'll be happy to help you out with whatever you need. And thank you so much for attending this webinar. And thank you again, Kelly.